Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of insights and give you the shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today we're tackling a challenge that, well, it haunts a lot of product managers and leaders. How do you actually drive big decisions when, you always have to be there? You've probably heard that phrase in product management, right? Influence without authority. It's celebrated, it's everywhere, almost like gospel. But what if that idea actually hides a critical problem, something that's quietly messing up your best work? Ever wonder why your project just stalls when you take a week off? Or why that amazing roadmap seems to, poof, disappear after a reorg? Yeah, that's the nasty hidden cost of just relying on influence.
You've absolutely hit on it. Look, personal influence is, of course, it's crucial for any leader,
Yeah.
no doubt. But relying only on it's like building a sandcastle.
Yeah.
The next tide comes in and it's gone. It just creates this unsustainable way of working where you become the bottleneck all the time.
And that is exactly what we're digging into today, because there's something beyond just influence, something more powerful, a concept that lets your impact actually scale and stick around, even when you're not physically in the room. We're talking about leverage.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're drawing heavily from some great insights by Sam Robertstad, originally published on his Substack, The Product Leader's Playbook. Our mission today is pretty clear. Unpack why just relying on that personal charm, that influence, often leads to these fragile models.
Yeah.
And more importantly, how the really effective product leaders build these durable systems, systems that scale their impact without needing them. They're 24/7.
So get ready for maybe some surprising truths, but definitely some practical insights. Stuff that helps you move past just short-term wins towards impact that lasts, that compounds. Let's get into it. So this whole influence without authority thing, I mean, it sounds great on paper, doesn't it? You're a PM, you don't manage the engineers directly or the designers, but somehow you get things done just by persuading people. But if it's so great, what's the catch? Why is it actually a problem, even though it's like product management 101?
Now, what's interesting is that influence, just by its nature, it's really personal, deeply interpersonal. It relies on trust, on hitting the right timing, on, knowing how to tailor your message for that specific meeting, those specific people. And when you're good at it, yeah, you can definitely rally the troops, change direction. But here's the thing. It takes a ton of energy to maintain. It fundamentally doesn't scale beyond you. And maybe most critically, it disappears the second you walk out of the room or go on leave.
Right. That's the piece that really hits home for me, because in these environments that change so fast, stakeholders rotate, priorities shift, leaders change. If your whole roadmap is held together basically by your charisma and constant check-ins, it's just incredibly fragile. It feels like trying to run a marathon by just sprinting all the time. You burn out.
Exactly. And you can often spot the PMs who rely too heavily on this. There are signs, like their projects only seem to move forward when they're physically in the meeting pushing it, or things just grind to a halt when they take a vacation. They spend so much time just reselling ideas in decks instead of actually building. And the biggest sign, their best work often gets quietly shelved just a few months after they move on.
The author mentions seeing this really clearly at Amazon and other places too. PMs who leaned hard on influence, their carefully built consensus just evaporated when a reorg happened. Their projects literally only stayed alive as long as their direct boss was still there. It's a pretty stark picture.
It really makes you ask, right? If all the strategic thinking, the why behind the decisions, just lives inside your head, then you yourself become the choke point for your own success. It makes the PM indispensable, sure, but in a way that just doesn't scale. It's not durable for the company.
Okay, so if that's influence high maintenance, doesn't scale, disappears, what's the fix? How does leverage work as the antidote here?
I like this analogy the author uses. If influence is the match that lights a fire, leverage is the whole setup, the kindling, the logs, the airflow, the fire pit itself that keeps the fire burning long after you've left.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, it's powerful because leverage means repeatable structures, things that make your product thinking, your strategy more durable, more scalable, and crucially, independent of whether you're personally involved day to day. It's about getting those good ideas embedded into team habits, into shared docs, into the culture, into how decisions get made, not just relying on you constantly pushing.
I'm starting to really see the difference now. So if we were to break it down, what are the key ways influence and leverage really differ?
Okay, let's contrast them. Think about their nature. Influence is personal. It's about relationships, often one-on-one. Leverage, that's structural. It's system dependent. You're building a framework.
Right.
The scalability. Influence needs you there, constantly pushing to keep things moving. It doesn't really grow beyond your personal reach. Leverage, though, it persists and scales without you. It can affect lots of people, lots of decisions automatically.
Mm.
Durability is a big one. Influence tends to fade. When things change, a reorg, new manager, you take time off. Leverage is built to withstand those changes. It endures through transitions.
Makes sense.
And finally, maintenance. Influence takes constant emotional energy, endless persuasion, reselling. Leverage. It definitely takes upfront effort to build the system, no doubt. But then, it pays off over time, compounding. It's an investment, not this recurring daily cost.
That's a huge difference in effort and outcome over the long haul. Can you give us a quick, concrete example just to lock this in?
Sure. So, convincing everyone in a meeting with a killer presentation. Classic influence. You won the room, for now. Contrast that with creating a well-documented PRFAQ, that's press release and frequently asked questions doc, and setting up regular review rituals around it. That is leverage. The really sharp PMs at Amazon, they didn't just have good ideas. They baked their thinking into these docs, into leadership reviews, into repeatable product mechanisms. So their work survived reorgs, their decisions could be understood and scaled by other teams, and their roadmaps didn't need constant defending because the why was written down, linked to customer value and part of the system. It was all very systematic, not just accidental charm.
That really drives it home. It's about building something that lasts, not just closing a deal in a meeting. So, okay, how does this leverage actually show up day to day? The author mentions 4 pillars, right? That compound influence.
Exactly, they build on each other. The first is process leverage. This means things like decision-making frameworks, standard product rituals, templates even, that let others make trade-offs using your kind of thinking patterns. So, think standardized ways to shape the roadmap, or asynchronous RFC processes, requests for comments for getting feedback without needing endless meetings.
Okay.
Or maybe default prioritization grids that encode your judgment, standard launch checklists that embed your quality bar. Amazon calls these mechanisms. They're not just red tape. They're systematic ways to make good decisions more likely, more often, and scalable.
Got it. So making the right way the easy way, almost. What about getting the word out? Communicating the strategy and decisions?
Yeah, that leads right into communication leverage. This is all about clear, narrative-style documents. Things like those PRFAQs or working backwards memos, strong vision statements. These docs don't just say what you're building. They crucially explain why it matters to customers, how it links to business goals, what trade-offs you considered, and what success actually looks like. The big shift here is moving away from, say, just PowerPoint decks that disappear after the meeting, towards document-driven clarity. Well-written strategy docs can travel. New people can read them. They last longer than memory. When the decisions and the why live in a doc, not just in meeting minutes or someone's head, they're easier to track, revisit, and build on. Less dependent on who was in the room that day.
I can totally see how that creates continuity and saves a ton of time re-explaining things. Okay, what's pillar number 3?
Number 3 is organizational leverage. This is about building really strong strategic partnerships, especially with design, engineering, sometimes ops. Ensure your priorities become shared, cross-functional priorities by default.
Ah, the triad.
Exactly. Strong triads, embedded team rituals where everyone is involved, shared ways of holding each other accountable. These things distribute ownership. It makes it much harder for your product work to just get sidelined or misunderstood because everyone feels some ownership. It's about investing in the relationships to create real structural alignment, not just, getting someone to agree with you in this one instance. When your design lead deeply gets the customer problem, or your tech lead can argue the business case for a technical path, that's organizational leverage working.
And the last one, the 4th pillar, sounds like the deepest level.
It really is. That's cultural leverage. You could argue this is the most durable kind. This is where shared mental models, a shared product philosophy, just become embedded in how the team thinks, how they naturally approach trade-offs. So, for example, if a team just deeply believes we measure customer outcomes, not just how busy we are, or we always launch small and iterate, that's cultural leverage. It means good product decisions start happening more automatically without you having to directly steer every single one, because the team is applying your frameworks intuitively to new situations. It's the difference between having to explain your reasoning every single time versus the team just knowing how to approach a new problem in the right way, almost instinctively.
Wow, yeah, that's truly scaling yourself way beyond what personal influence alone could ever do. It sounds like building this leverage isn't about adding layers of bureaucracy, but about being really intentional and systematic. So for someone listening, a product leader thinking, okay, I want this, how do they actually build it? What are the steps?
Yeah, the author lays out 4 pretty actionable steps. First, codify your product thinking. This means actually writing down your reasoning in ways other people can find, understand, reuse, build on. Don't just list features on a roadmap. Explain why they're there. What customer problem do they solve? How do they connect to business goals? How will we know if we succeeded?
Right.
Think detailed strategy memos, not just bullet points on a slide. Decision docs that capture the trade-offs you considered, not just the final answer. That Amazon PRFAQ process is such a good model here because it forces you to articulate the customer need, define success, think through challenges before you build anything. It creates that shared touchstone.
Okay, make the thinking tangible, visible, accessible. Got it. What's step 2?
Step 2, design for default alignment. Look, the most effective PMs aren't constantly reselling their ideas over and over. They set up structures where alignment becomes the normal state, the default path, not something requiring constant effort.
How do they do that?
It means things like setting up recurring rituals, roadmap previews, feedback sessions, investing in good asynchronous collaboration tools and processes. So decisions live in shared docs, not just meeting rooms, building shared dashboards where everyone sees the same data, regular async reviews that work even if you're out. It frees up so much time from that endless persuasion cycle.
Yeah, that sounds way more efficient. Less reactive selling. And then how do you make sure these aligned priorities actually stick? That they don't just get pushed aside later?
That's step 3. Institutionalize your priorities.
Yeah.
Good product thinking always connects back to durable business outcomes, real customer impact. Leverage gets built when your decisions, your roadmap, are firmly anchored in company goals, in customer metrics, maybe team incentives, things that last longer than your current project push.
Makes sense.
If you can't easily justify your roadmap item by linking it to metrics leadership already tracks and cares about, it's probably not going to survive the next reorg or budget cut. So the key is to push your decisions, your priorities, into the existing systems. Link them to OKR trackers, build them into sprint rituals, add checks to launch checklists, surface them on performance dashboards, make them part of how the team operates, not just the thing you're currently working on.
Embedding it right into the operational fabric. Okay. And the final step. Sounds powerful.
It is. Step 4, create forcing functions. This is about setting up systems that make good decisions almost, unavoidable, almost foolproof.
Like guardrails.
Exactly. Like clear decision-making frameworks everyone uses. Building customer feedback loops directly into the dev cycle so you have to listen. Creating accountability structures that reinforce the product philosophy you want. Examples could be things like requiring a user research phase before any major new feature work starts, or mandating a customer impact assessment for any proposed change to the roadmap, or having regular business reviews where product metrics are tied directly to company goals, maybe even leadership compensation. These forcing functions ensure the right principles get applied consistently, even when you're not personally there whispering in everyone's ear.
Okay, this is really crystallizing. And to drive it home even more, the author shares this great personal story, right? From early in his career. A tale of 2 very different product initiatives.
Yeah, it's a fantastic contrast. So early on, he led 2 big initiatives pretty close together within about 6 months. The first one was this customer-facing feature. He really believed in it, thought it would seriously boost engagement, and he got it done through what he calls relentless persuasion. You know, the drill, endless slide decks, cornering people in hallways, late-night Slack messages, constant lobbying.
Been there.
Right. And hey, the feature launched, it was successful, showed good early signs, looked like a win.
Okay. But I sense a but coming. What happened to that win?
Well, just 2 quarters later, the project got quietly put on the shelf during a prioritization review. Just stopped.
Why?
Because there was no lasting footprint, no durable document explaining the original why, the customer problem. No clear link to business metrics that mattered beyond his immediate advocacy. There was no structure holding it up once priorities shifted and maybe some new leaders came in. It was entirely dependent on his personal influence, his constant pushing. And when that stopped, the project just faded.
Oof. That's exactly that hidden cost we talked about at the start. Just evaporates. So how was the second initiative different? What did he change?
Totally different playbook from day one. This time, he started with really comprehensive documentation, meticulously outlined the customer problem, defined clear success metrics up front, articulated the business rationale connecting it to bigger goals. He proactively called out the key trade-offs they were making, ran a series of asynchronous reviews, getting input from all the cross-functional partners, making sure everyone really got the why.
Okay, much more upfront work on the foundation.
Yeah, and he explicitly linked the initiative to a company-wide OKR. He built that triad alignment right into their regular sprint planning. He even created a dashboard specifically to track the customer impact metrics and set up regular business reviews where they discuss progress against those company goals.
Wow, that sounds like a lot more systematic effort right at the beginning, a much stronger base. What happened with this one?
6 months after launch, the feature wasn't just alive, it was growing, expanding to new customer segments. And here's the kicker.
Yeah.
He had already moved on to a different product line by then.
No way.
Yep. The initiative survived 2 reorganizations, a change in engineering leadership, and even a pretty big shift in overall company priorities. Why? Because Me team members could easily read the docs and understand the rationale. The customer impact was visible to leadership on that dashboard. The measurement systems kept proving its value. It just kept chugging along, independent of him.
That is a night and day difference, just profound. And it totally nails the core lesson, right? The success, the lasting success of that second one. It wasn't really about the idea being better or the market being hotter or him being more persuasive that time. It was the systematic leverage he built around it. That's what made it durable, scalable beyond just him.
Absolutely. It hammers home that point. A PM's job, especially as you get more senior, isn't just about having good ideas and convincing people. It's really about creating the conditions where good decisions happen more often, almost automatically, and where that impact compounds over time.
Yeah.
And that takes more than just influence. It requires thinking systematically about how to scale your own judgment, your own decision-making for the whole org.
That is a huge and I think really essential shift in perspective. That quote, stop building PowerPoints and start building systems. That really reframes the whole role, doesn't it?
It completely does. And look, this isn't saying relationships don't matter or communication skills aren't vital. Of course they are. They're table stakes. But it's recognizing that truly sustainable product leadership needs more than just personal influence. You need that systematic leverage to create impact that lasts. Influence might get you in the door, might win you the meeting today, but leverage is what keeps your thinking alive, keeps it growing, keeps it making an impact long after you've moved on to the next challenge.
And that really brings us towards the end of our deep dive today. We've dug into how just relying on that personal influence, while it feels powerful sometimes, can actually create this fragile way of working that just collapses when you step away.
Yeah, we've drawn that critical line. Influence can get you agreement in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
Leverage is what keeps your thinking, your strategy alive and growing and impacting things long after you're gone. It really is about building those durable structures, those systems that make great product decisions happen again and again.
So as you think about everything we've talked through today, we want to leave you with a few questions. Think of it as a quick reflection framework you can apply to your own work, like right now.
First off, where are you still leaning maybe too heavily on just personal influence to drive decisions? And what systems, what leverage could you start putting in place there to make those decisions more scalable, more durable?
Second question, a bit of a thought experiment. What would actually happen to your most important product initiatives if you took a month-long vacation starting tomorrow? Seriously. Which ones would keep moving forward smoothly, and which ones would just stall out, or maybe even get pushed aside?
Third, how much of your core strategic thinking, the why behind your roadmap, the critical decisions, how much of that only exists inside your head versus being clearly written down in documents that others can find, understand, build on, even use to onboard new folks?
And finally, think about those recurring arguments, those debates that seem to happen over and over on your team or with stakeholders. What recurring product debates could be resolved or at least improved with better frameworks, clearer documentation, or more systematic processes that you could help establish?
Yeah, the answers to those questions, they'll probably point you right to where influence might be hiding a need for more leverage. And they'll show you the biggest opportunities you have right now to start building those systems that will compound your impact over time and really make your work last.
We really hope this deep dive helps you think about building those systems for truly lasting impact. Thanks so much for joining us.